We'll begin the proceedings in a moment. Our dignitaries are just walking in.
सब्सक्राइब करने की जरूरत नहीं है ना?
नहीं कर दीजिए तो और अच्छी बात। कर दें तो और अच्छी।
अरे बाप रे, मुझे बताया
तैयारी नहीं।
इसको भी बंद कर सकते क्या? नहीं कर सकते। क्यों डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हैं? नहीं उनका पेन ड्राइव दिखा रहा है।
चालू है सर। होस्ट वहां
अभी नहीं, जब जब उनका चिदम्बरम सब था, नासी नासी हैदराबाद की उन्होंने केवल काफी निकलना। A very good morning and welcome you all. The National Academy of Sciences, India, NASI, the oldest science academy of the country, which was founded in 1930 by the great patriotic scientist, physicist, and a visionary policy maker of our nation, Professor Meghnad Saha. The founding of the academy was warmly welcomed by eminent scientists from all over the world and sent messages for goodwill to the NASI, like Professor Albert Einstein from Germany, Lord Rutherford from England, Professor James Walker from Scotland, Professor Summerfield from Germany, Professor E.S. Goodrich, and many more. The founding of the Academy also made headlines abroad, for example, in Nature London in its issue of October 8, 1932, welcoming the successful inauguration of the Academy and expressing hope that it would significantly stimulate science in India. I hope we have aware that the Nobel laureate Professor Erwin Schrödinger came at Allahabad and has been the president of NASI in year 1941. So Professor Saha, in the first inaugural address, remarked that the main function of the academy should be towards cultural improvement by the contribution to human knowledge and gave a mandate, science and society. Since then, the academy has crossed many milestones, successfully serving the cause of science and society. In the context of its journey, I would like to quote a few lines about the academy said by our former president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, who had just inaugurated the Platinum Jubilee celebration of the academy at Allahabad in October 6, 2005. Professor Kalam sir has praised the role of academy in boosting the zeal of the budding scientist who could do better in the future with such supporting and endeavors. He stressed that the science should not be confined to the laboratories. And we can say the Pokhran test is the example from laboratory to the land. And today we assembled here to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Pokhran test, the Smiling Buddha. The program is being organized by the Academy with the kind support of Department of Physics, Institute of Technology, New Delhi. With these few words, may I humbly request Professor Rangan Banerjee, sir, the director of this esteemed institution, to kindly welcome the August gathering. Respected Professor Banerjee, sir.
Good morning. It's a great privilege for me on behalf of IIT Delhi to welcome all the distinguished guests of NASI. It is indeed our privilege to be co-hosting this celebration of 50 years of Pokhran. It gives me immense pleasure for another reason that the two speakers here are giants not only in their field and have established our independence in technology in the nuclear domain, but have also been responsible for steering academia and science and technology development in the country. Dr. Chidambaram is actually has a long association with our institute, and he was the person who actually introduced me to IIT Delhi when I joined as director. He has been our chairman of our board, and his presence, his advice, his sage advice, his counsel, and his unique brand of humor in the board meetings are things which we all cherish. And his interest in young people, and he always said that, you know, we have to think about we have to be risk takers and innovators. And he told us, try to find ways in which we can, you know, get our faculty members to do some risky, challenging things. And I think we are really inspired that you continue to sort of inspire, think, and look at ways in which we can do things. Dr. Kakodkar has been in the field of energy, in the field of science and technology, again, someone who has actually helped us push boundaries. And both the speakers today are actually people who have built and believe strongly in our science and technology, in independence, in becoming Atmanirbhar, and actually pushing the boundaries, and actually India having leadership in thought and education. So it is indeed a pleasure for us to have this, and I am delighted. I was just telling Dr. Chidambaram that unfortunately our exams are over, so the undergraduate students, most of them are gone, some of our postgraduates are gone, but I'm delighted that on a Saturday morning we have a full auditorium, and we would continue to be inspired by Dr. Chidambaram and Dr. Kakodkar, and we will create also opportunities for our younger students to interact with them in the future. We are also delighted to have many of our colleagues are active members and fellows of NASI, and we are delighted to partner with NASI for this initiative. So it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to IIT Delhi for this event. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your kind words. May I again request Honorable Professor Manju Sharma Madam, the former President of NASI, who has immensely contributed to the science in general and academy in particular, to kindly welcome the gathering on behalf of NASI.
Namaskar. A very good morning to this very, very distinguished gathering. I see all very eminent scientists who have assembled here for this very important event of the National Academy of Sciences, India. It is a great pleasure to welcome Dr. Anil Kakodkar. Of course, he doesn't need any introduction. Everybody in the country, all the scientific community know him. Also, I'm extremely delighted to welcome Dr. Chidambaram. Sir, your presence here is going to be so exciting for the students. Some of the students from the IIT had been asking me whether you will be there or not. I got phone calls from here that whether Dr. Chidambaram will be there or not. So I think the IIT students are really excited to have you. We are celebrating 50 years of Pokhran, the smiling Buddha, as we say. This whole effort has made the country very proud. India's name all over the world, and also in the country itself is so well established now that everybody is proud of what our scientists have done with regard to the Pokhran experiment. It is such a wonderful thing to see Dr. Anil Kakodkar and Dr. Chidambaram. Both, they are the architect of this program. And thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation to be here this morning, both Dr. Chidambaram and Dr. Anil Kakodkar. I see Dr. Ashok Mishra sitting here, and he is one of the IIT directors. But one thing very unique about Dr. Ashok Mishra, his contribution to the academy has been immense. From the day one when he came and joined our council, then he was the president, he was the past president. His contributions have been really remarkable. Dr. Mishra, we are really thankful to you in the academy for what you have done all these years. We are going to have the two lectures, so I'm not going to stand between Dr. Chidambaram and Dr. Kakodkar and you. But just one thing which I want to remind all of you, that the National Academy of Sciences India is very proud today that it has been organizing such events all over the country. We are not just confined to Varanasi or to Prayagraj or to Lucknow, the near about areas. But the academy has gone across the country, whether it is Shillong, whether it is Kolkata, whether it is Mumbai, all over the country, the academy is spreading its program. And certainly the credit of this goes to all the presidents of the academy who have taken the initiative. But I will be failing in my duty if I don't take one name, which really gave a boost to the academy. And that is Professor M.G.K. Menon. But for him, the National Academy of Sciences India nobody knew what the academy was many years ago. But it was Professor Menon who gave life to the academy, who brought the best of the scientists, the topmost scientists to the academy. And that made the academy really energize all its effort to bring in the large number of scientists, large number of young students, women scientists across the country who are very excited now, and they are always very happy to join any event which the NASI organizes. So with these words, I welcome all of you once again. And of course, you will be hearing very soon Dr. Chidambaram as well as Dr. Anil Kakodkar. So I don't want to come in between now, and let's have the program started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for your kind words. Now, may I request Professor Amit Roy, sir, Vice President of Academy, to kindly flash the light on background of this event and invite the today's chief guest, Professor R. Chidambaram sir with his introduction, sir.
A very good morning to all of you, and welcome to this program on this 50 years of Smiling Buddha. We are really very fortunate that two of the main key architects of this of the event, which happened in 1974, are here to tell us about from their perspective and their account and the personal story also we'd like to hear. So this particular event happened in 1974, and it was actually a very watershed moment in the history of the technology development and the national security development of the country. As borrowing a line from Dr. Chidambaram, is national development and national security are two sides of the same coin. That's what he said some time back. And it's actually very apt and right thing to do, because this event actually brought in a lot of enthusiasm in the scientific community in the country and demonstrated our capability, technological capability, and the thought process of the leadership that we will support this kind of activities and doing things on our own. This is the only program of the device of the getting into the nuclear control of the nuclear power in this way. And India is the only country outside the 5 permanent members of the Security Council who did this thing completely independent of the rest of the countries. All other countries which had the knowledge, technology development of the nuclear power came from the main Manhattan project and the offshoots of that. This is also, I think, Professor Dr. Chidambaram probably will show up some slide on that, showing that the India stands alone and developed its technology capability completely on its own. The program was, the background of the program, if you recollect, see, I was a student at that time in TIFR, and I used to go to BRC to do experiments in the Van de Graaff. And the thing is, it was so well organized and so smoothly arranged, and it was kept in a confidential manner that no one in the community, even inside BRC, very few people knew about it. Only the people who were involved in this program, they knew about it. And later, after the event was there, we all felt very happy. And some of my acquaintances and friends, they also realized that whatever they were working on was actually contributing to this cause. They also didn't themselves, because we were juniors at that time, we didn't know that they were working on this particular, towards this event. So this was very well managed, and it shows the skill management and the efficiency of the system that the Department of Atomic Energy that could deliver this. And this also spurred after that the technology development in the country in many other fields. This event enthused people to start on things on their own. And if you look at the 74 event, just before that, 1971, India was fought a war with Pakistan and the creation of Bangladesh. And at that time, what happened was the US, you will all remember, the US had sent a aircraft carrier, USS Enterprise, in the Bay of Bengal. And at that time, the Soviet Union, which we had a treaty with that, Indira Gandhi had formed a treaty, Indo-Soviet treaty before that, and they sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, into the Bay of Bengal, which was tracing that thing, and that actually contained the activities of the USS Enterprise. And it showed, and the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi realized that the ability of the nuclear deterrence, and I will not quote Dr. Chidambaram, he has something to say on this also, the connection of deterrence and how it gives strength to the nation, and how it prevents others from exploiting you and trying to overpower you. So that time, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi gave the go-ahead to the BRC to go for this weaponization of the program. The program had started right from the beginning of the atomic energy establishment in 1954. In fact, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru who we all think that he was all for peace, he himself had said in his, I will quote from his speech, which he gave in Parliament, he said, "We must develop the atomic energy quite apart from war. Indeed, I think that we must develop it for the purpose of using it for peaceful purposes. Of course, if we are compelled as a nation to use it for other purposes, possibly no pious sentiments of any of us will stop the nation from using it that way." So he had supported all the way. He had told Dr. Bhabha, who started this program, the whole of the nuclear program in the country, that go ahead and that supported it. So there was the indigenous production of the first reactor in Apsara, 1954, 56. It was critical. I have used myself the Apsara for doing some experiments. Then there was the Cyrus reactor, which came in 1960. There also, this provided the 40 megawatt research reactor that provided the plutonium. And the plutonium plant was built to extract, reprocess, and take the plutonium out of it. The entire technology was developed indigenously in the country. So after that final event happened in 1974, and we are very happy that two of the major players in that event are here to tell us about their side of the story and also give more details on this event. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Chidambaram. As Professor Manju Sharma said, he doesn't really require any introduction to anyone in the country, but still, as a formality, I will do that. Dr. Chidambaram, he completed his PhD from Indian Institute of Science, working on nuclear magnetic resonance techniques. And then he started working with neutrons in BRC. He did a lot of experiments and they set up these neutron scattering and neutron diffraction for material studies. He was the first to work on the equation of state of plutonium, and he's an expert on the metallurgy plutonium and also the high pressure physics. In fact, first initially when he started with the high pressure physics, it was within I think in BRC with the TBRL with them in the project, and he was one of the designers of the implosion device in this 1974 explosion. Afterwards, he started the high pressure physics as open physics, and he encouraged many other institutions to go in this field. And again, the equipment that was needed for the high pressure research or extreme high pressures for we can generate shock waves, they're all built indigenously in the country. The high pressure anvils, the other spectrometers, etc. He has a master of coinage of special terms which are very significant. For example, one of the things which I remember, which he often uses, is a directed basic research. That basic research you do, but then you must have a focus on it, which can give you some results, which benefits the society as well when you're doing the basic research. So he has been encouraging the technology development for itself, as well as the basic research, and in fact encourage many of our academic institutions outside the Department of Atomic Energy to join in hands with the system, with the atomic energy programs, and contribute in that way not only to the effective use of the atomic energy, but also the development of various technologies and spread it across the country, and skill development for the young people. As Professor Rangan Banerjee said, that he also tries to instigate people to take risks. And I think that's one of the key things for doing something new is to take risks, to be able to take risks. And so I will not tell anything about his awards and achievements. He has got many. He has been the director of BRC for several years. Then he was the chairman of Atomic Energy Commission. Then he was the principal scientific advisor, second principal scientific advisor after Dr. Abdul Kalam. And he was the principal scientific advisor to the government of India for a very long time. about almost 16 years, till 2018. And there also, in the PS, as the principal scientific advisor, he started a lot of new programs and the development of rural technologies, and to affect to be able to take the high technology into the villages. So that was something which is great. And I had the occasion of, in fact, working with him in the celebration of physics, the 2005, and we created a program. And out of that program, on his recommendation, we started the program of this Inspire program of the DST, was due to his initiatives. So with that, I will invite Dr. Chidambaram to give his keynote address.
Not this one. No. Not this. Go back. NASI. आजकल
Only now.
old. ये ले लो. Next one more.
Super.
Yes. Second. Professor Rangan Banerjee, Professor Manju Sharma, Dr. Anil Kakodkar and friends. It's always a pleasure to come to IIT Delhi. And this time is no exception. Already I had some pleasant interactions with Professor Rangan Banerjee. It's difficult to believe that 50 years have passed since the May 1974 test, and that we are celebrating the golden jubilee of that. And in fact, the first test was done in the name of the peaceful nuclear explosion. I remember it was in 1967 that Dr. Ramanna called and assigned me work on PNEs. At that time, there was very little literature on peaceful nuclear explosions. Actually, in terms of physics, as far as the explosive is concerned, there is no difference between a nuclear weapon and a peaceful nuclear explosive. It's only in terms of the packaging and the freedom that you have up to a point. You see, and if you have a nuclear weapon, it has to be linked to a missile, and that puts you some limits on the dimensions. Of course, you can also airdrop the nuclear weapon. And when Dr. Ramanna asked me to take it up, the proposal was, of course, exciting. In fact, first I told him I'm a crystallographer, material scientist. What do I know about peaceful nuclear explosions? So he said, nobody knows, so you can also start on that. And then, of course, this excitement continued as I went into it and reached its peak when we had a successful PNE experiment on May 18, 1974, which is what we are, the golden jubilee of which we are celebrating today. There were two important criteria for our peaceful nuclear explosion, because we had already signed the partial test ban treaty. So we could not carry out an atmospheric explosion. Every country, they formed a treaty called NPT, and 5 of them anointed themselves. And they are the ones who will have nuclear weapons, and all the others will be prevented. Of course, India never agreed to that treaty, the political system. So But then the partial test ban treaty prevented us from doing atmospheric nuclear explosion. That is easier than to do it underground. If you do it on the surface, you just assemble the device and blow it up. But here, you have to go deep down, and then we went perpendicular to that, because right under the shaft, it's a weak one. Because if you go a few meters inside, then you have solid rock on top of that. And we had to do proper computer simulation in order to ensure that there is no venting of radioactivity. See, what happens when you do an underground nuclear explosion is the immediate surrounding is vaporized. The rock around the shot point is vaporized. And then the shock wave, it becomes a source of a shock wave that proceeds outside. It's a divergent shock wave. So it decreases in strength as it goes out. First, it is strong enough after the vaporization stage, because every shock wave not only compresses, as I said, it also delivers heat. It melts the rock. And then it proceeds further. It can't even melt the rock, but it will fracture the rock. So at some point of time, you have a cavity of vaporized rock surrounded by molten rock and then fractured rock. Then the shock comes and hits the ground surface. What comes as a compression wave goes back as a rarefaction wave, and the mound lifts. And this is brittle rock, it cracks. So, and then it falls down, of course. Can form a crater, it can leave no effect at all also if you are very deep. And in that process, it fractures the rock. Of course, you can't throw a brittle material and make it fall without its crack. Now, there are fractures going down from the surface. There are fractures are coming out from the short point. If the two meet, then there is venting of radioactivity. So in fact, the first thing I had started to do was do a computer simulation and calculate the depth of burial in order to ensure that there will be no venting of radioactivity. Because you don't want to waste effort to dig deeper and deeper. So what is optimum depth of burial of the rock, burial of the device, so that you don't have venting of radioactivity? This, of course, was done, and it was very, very successful. And then Dr. Ramanna had asked me to find a suitable application. Hydrocarbons reservoir stimulation, what the Americans started with. See, gas comes out through fractured rock. If you increase the fracture, more gas will come out. So what I suggested that we can do it for copper ore, maybe I mentioned that already, copper ore, fracture the rock, send in dilute sulfuric acid and recover the copper value. This, in fact, I presented in a meeting of the International Atomic Energy Agency. And then somebody asked me, and okay, you are giving an application. Who will make the device for you? I said, we will make the device. And the moment I said that, they said there is nothing like a peaceful nuclear explosion. And the Americans tried to abandon these IAEA meetings. But IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, we have started it, so we will have to continue for a few years. This is, of course, 98. Prime Minister had declared that these are nuclear weapon tests. These are not. And I knew that we had only one chance to do the test. And so we did 5 of them all together. A fission device, a thermonuclear device, which is popularly known as the hydrogen bomb, and 3 sub-kiloton devices, less than 1 kiloton, but we had to establish some principles in physics, in the design of device. As I said, this was our only chance. And we also did 3 subkiloton devices. 3 on May 11th, 2 more on May 13th. And I had told the Prime Minister that this is a gaping hole into which we are going to lower the device. Last 2 days, it will be out in the public. So Bajpai ji said, don't worry, last 2 days political pressure we will handle. But it so happened the experiment, the explosion, first explosion was on, this is a joke, don't take it seriously. On May 11th, which happened to be a Monday. And you know, Americans don't work on weekends. So the gaping hole nobody saw. And then they looked back at all the CIA data, spy satellites and all that. They said this is a gaping hole. So on May 13th, they discussed for 2 days, for a long time, how they could have missed such a open experiment that was missed. So they missed the May 13th test because they were not watching, they were discussing. As I said, don't take it seriously. There is a bit of a joke. See, May 98, all these people had warned us, both 74 and 98, that you do this, there will be so many sanctions on India that Indian economy will collapse. But it was fortunate that we had two strong prime ministers at the right time, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And then, after the 98 test, I'm showing you India's foreign exchange reserves. Do you see any blip at all in 98? Nothing. In fact, one leading economist told me, it looks as though after your test, the India's foreign exchange reserves seem to have gone up. You see the exponential growth of the curve. Of course, today, Indian economy is doing well. The foreign exchange reserve, this had reached, that you can read in the left-hand side. Today, it has gone up to $645 billion. So Indian economy is growing. And this was a Venn diagram. Venn diagram, if you remember your school physics, you take any property. And this is a Venn diagram for sharing nuclear weapons knowledge. The early experiments were done by US and UK together. So UK has been buried inside the United States. Knowledge of the nuclear weapon design went from US to France, France to Israel, Israel to South Africa. How it went from US to Russia, I don't want to comment on. Russia gave it to China, China gave it to Pakistan. And see where my good old India stands, alone. So they recognize that nobody helped us and we spied on nobody. And the fact is, there is a moral, general moral here, that there is nothing India cannot do if it decides to do it. Because you've got so much strength. Of course, we have national labs and you've got organizations like IIT, and we work together on many, many issues. So as I said, and I repeat, there's nothing that India cannot do if it decides to do it. Where are the claps? See, this is a cartoon came in Hindustan Times before the May 98 test. And this suited, booted gentleman, who is obviously a Westerner, is telling the Gandhi cap, who is obviously an Indian politician, you must not make the bomb. Why do you want the bomb? And the Gandhi cap tells this guy, Because if I had one, you wouldn't talk to me like this. You know, there is a moral over here. Moral in this story. Of course, the most difficult one was the thermonuclear explosive. One of my close colleagues in the design of the device was S.K. Sikka, a brilliant, brilliant scientist, and very sad he passed away recently. And particularly in the design of the thermonuclear device. As you know, fusion, whether it is a tokamak or a thermonuclear device or a hydrogen bomb, it requires very high temperature for the isotopes of hydrogen to fuse, D and T, or even D and D, which require higher temperature. And that kind of temperature in a weapon can be produced only by a fission device, another nuclear device. So a hydrogen bomb is a two-stage device. The first stage being a fission device or a fusion boosted fission device. And that temperature that it produces uses radiation implosion to compress the fusion part. And you can control that. We did it at 45 kilotons because the shaft was already there. And as I mentioned to you before, there is only a certain explosive kind of yield which a given depth can stand, to guarantee that there is no venting of the device. And the shaft that we had could not take more than 45 kiloton. So we had to control the yield. And this one, just question of changing the isotopes, we can go up to 200 kiloton. See, this is how, after the test, when you go back and dig the rock, this is how the rock looks like. And you see, you can't dig immediately after the test because the whole area is very hot. Hot temperature-wise as well as radioactivity-wise. So we wait for a few months, comfortably dig, take out, and look at the radioactivity. And that is the best method of calculating the yield. You take the fission products, then you take the residual plutonium, and then you can calculate how much plutonium is burnt, and then one can, you can also decide, find out how well the thermonuclear part has worked. Nuclear deterrence was mentioned by Dr. Angan Banerjee, or was it Amit Roy? Anyway, one of you. See, we need retaliatory deterrence. Nobody wants to use a nuclear weapon. After Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we know that the damage is too much. And I think it is almost inhuman to use. Probably Japan would have surrendered after the Second World War. There's a lot of people, even if the Americans had not used the nuclear weapons. Japan was already on its knees when they did this. But a big, large country like India must have this retaliatory deterrence. And this has got three components. The political component, as I said, smaller countries cannot manage. They don't have the scientific capability or the resources to do it. Then there is a psychological component. When the leadership you have to be careful because very often it's possible the political leadership in an enemy country is irresponsible. So we have to be prepared for that. Then, of course, part of technological self-reliance. The smaller countries, they are part of an alliance, and then they think that anybody threatens them, some of their friends who have nuclear weapons will come and help. But will they come and help and risk one of their cities to be attacked? This question was always a bothersome one. That's why France started its own nuclear deterrence. Oh. Of course, nuclear is not just weapons. Nuclear is power. And fortunately, thanks to the vision of people like Dr. Homi Bhabha, Homi Bhabha thought of building nuclear reactors in India even before nobody had built any reactors. That is a kind of vision that the great man has. See, always I tried to quote, some of you would have read, as I said, Arthur Koestler. He talks of two kinds of leaders, the yogi and the commissar. Yogi, the contemplative thinker, and the commissar, the man of action. And all of us who are a mixture of both, and maybe one quality that dominates. Bhabha, though what I'm saying is mathematically absurd, Bhabha seemed to be a man who was 100% yogi and 100% commissar. He's a theoretical physicist. And he imagined, before reactors were built, that India should be a nuclear power. And fortunately had a very good relationship with Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. They had met in England, and both had gone for higher studies. So here, Yukiya Amano, he's the Director General of IAEA. He came to India in 2013. That's more than a decade back, and he said, "I'd like to conclude by noting that India's remarkable success in the field of peaceful nuclear technology is an inspiration for many developing countries." And I also appreciate, because we were talking about technical cooperation, and India was more than happy to help other countries if they wanted any help, or as a mentor for other Asian countries that have recently joined the IAEA. India is the forefront of technological development in the nuclear sector, not least in the area of fast reactors and nuclear fuel cycles. India, that you can have an open nuclear fuel cycle. You can build reactors, pressurized water reactors, light water reactors, heavy water reactors, and throw away the spent fuel as waste, which is absurd, because you use only a small amount of power which is there in this. There's a lot of useful material. Plutonium is there in the spent fuel. But if you take out the plutonium and build new kinds of reactors called fast breeder reactors, that's called closing the nuclear fuel cycle. And India has a long-term mission. We have one of the world's largest reserves of thorium. Just like the isotope uranium-238 becomes plutonium-239, thorium-232 becomes uranium-233, which is in the long term. And that is how the nuclear weapon. Few minutes more. And then, of course, nuclear has so many applications. We are able to export mangoes to the US after irradiation. Of course, it does no harm to it, kills all the bacteria. She shipped the mangoes and can reach United States safe and healthy. Medical, anybody has unfortunately cancer cells, best thing is to kill it by gamma radiation from cobalt-60, and that is made in our reactors, and so many others. brachytherapy. You can park the radioisotope inside whatever cells that you want to kill and all that. And nuclear medicine, that's why nuclear medicine, India is one of the leaders in the world in terms of nuclear medicine, both in terms of teletherapy and, as I said, in terms of brachytherapy. See, there is this guy, Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He coined a phrase called anti-fragile. I don't know how many of you heard, read Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Fragile are things that break down under stress. Robust are things which withstand stress. Anti-fragile are things which become stronger under stress. This is like antibiotic resistant bacteria is perhaps the best example. So I had talked in one of my lectures that this is true of a nuclear program. They thought they will control us by putting restrictions on us. Of course, we said, thank you very much. If you don't give us, we will do it ourselves. And we became stronger. And the moment you become stronger, the restrictions are slowly dropped, because now it becomes commercial business. In fact, I remember a director back, that's a long time back, self-reliance as immunity against technology denial. Self-reliance is not trying to do everything yourself. If something is available to you, including the proverbial wheel, from a reliable source, go ahead and use it. But if anything is denied to you, including the proverbial wheel, you must have the capability to do it yourself. That's why I define self-reliance as immunity against technology denial. And once they saw this, the nuclear supplier guidelines have been relaxed for India. And we should further leverage international cooperation. They also want our cooperation. I remember chairing the board of governors in IAEA, and one of the Western countries' representative made a statement. We are talking about technical cooperation. And this chap has the cheek to say that the donor countries are suffering from donor fatigue. They have been giving so much, they are tired. That is the day I decided hereafter, starting with nuclear, India will never go for international cooperation on a donor-recipient basis, only on an equal partner basis. It's what we should do everywhere. There is nothing India cannot do, as I said before. Every area we have got strengths, and any cooperation should be on an equal partner basis. In fact, I used to tell my Western friends when I was Chairman Atomic Energy Commission, we need you in the short term. You are going to need us in the long term. Of course, the evolution, Indian nuclear policy has evolved. K. Subramanian, one of our great strategic writers, and he says 64 was the defining moment in the Indian nuclear policy when China did its test. Nuclear weapon. He became a nuclear weapon power. And a few days later, Dr. Homi Bhabha, founder of our program, said India being in a position to go nuclear in about 18 months, because by that time we would have got enough plutonium. And I don't know how he calculated. He says it costs only 18 lakhs. And he was a top class scientist. He would have done a perfect calculation. And unfortunately, he was immediately rebuked by Krishna Menon, who was a fervent anti-nuclear campaigner. Only against India. You can't do anything against other foreign countries. Dr. Raja Ramanna, the father of the nuclear explosion program in the country, says in his autobiography that the final meeting prior to the May 74 test, involved heated discussions. P.N. Dhar, the principal secretary to the PM, was vehemently opposed to the test as he felt that the test would damage the economy. And Ramana says, my own view was it was now impossible to postpone. We had already put the device inside the hole. So Ramana told them it's not possible to now to back out for that. Fortunately, Ramana says, for my team, Mrs. Gandhi decreed that the experiment should be carried out on schedule for the simple reason that India required such a demonstration. So, do you know, fortunately, we have got great political leaders like Indira Gandhi and, of course, Modi, of course. I'm not talking about the present, in the olden time, Vajpayee and so on, so many others. After the 74 test, we kept the nuclear option open. Nobody stopped the development work. The devices we designed were going on improving, but how long can I get a young man interested in this? And you can't write a paper on this. They ask, where is your list of publication? You can't say, I'm working on the publishing in international. And of course, in promotion meetings, I used to tell them, and this committee, some part of the work that he has done, it cannot be talked about. And nothing of the kind, of course, happened. Nothing happened about as far as the collapse of the economy was concerned. In fact, more than one economist has told me India's economy improved. In fact, I was traveling with one engineering company executive in flight. He didn't know who, except that I am from BAC. He didn't know my involvement. And he told me his company's exports to the Middle East had increased after the Pokhran test. So in fact, the Middle East guys are telling, if you can make nuclear weapons, well, you can make anything. And I'm coming to the end of my talk. And this is, as I've told you, variation of foreign exchange reserves, how it could come. And you see, when it's becoming a nuclear weapon state, what bothers people is from you go from 0 to 1. But if you have 30 and you go 30 to 31, nobody cares. Makes no difference. That's why I plotted here significance of the increasing nuclear stockpile, number of weapons. This happens only if the program is self-reliant, but if the program is based on clandestine acquisition, and clandestine channels are bidirectional. If a guy gets it, knowledge, material, and maybe whole weapon itself by clandestine methods, very likely he will do the other way. He will give it to other countries. You see, that's the upper curve. Lower curve is if your nuclear weapon program is based on self-reliance. And the upper curve is if it is based on developed nuclear weapon program. I won't tell you which country I'm referring to. Finally, let me come to India for dreams. Economically developed, UN Sustainable Development Goals are the beginning. We want India to become a knowledge economy. A country capable of developing new knowledge, a country capable of appropriating knowledge generated anywhere in the world. Scientifically advanced, we must establish an excellent RDI ecosystem, which we have succeeded. IIT Delhi is an example of that. With excellence in basic research, including what Ranganji said, directed basic research, technology development, R&D-led innovation, and all this of no use unless it is backed by high quality manufacturing skills. Fortunately, all these are growing together. And we must be militarily strong with the ability to fight and win conventional wars, crush low-intensity conflicts, and provide nuclear deterrence. What makes you, not just because you have nuclear weapons, doesn't mean you shouldn't have a strong conventional army. And all this is possible only if India becomes a knowledge-driven economy. And of course, we need high-quality leaders at various levels, not only politically at the top, but in institutions like this. Leaders who have an appetite for risk-taking. Must read the article by Abhijit Banerjee. Abhijit is the Nobel laureate in economics. He says, poor people take up low-risk projects, so they remain poor. And the moral of the story as far as research is concerned, if you take up safe research projects, of course you get it published, but you will always be at the lower rank. Even in research or technology development, you must take high risk projects. If you succeed, then the returns are very high. And that's why I've always said technology is power. This is what I was mentioning. Alvin Toffler and his famous this has already happened. Knowledge is power. So I paraphrase everything. Violence, whoever had the best technology for inflicting violence was the most successful. Whoever had money, you may have the knowledge, but unless you have the money to develop the technology, you cannot go to the top. And ultimately, everything is based on knowledge. That is why organizations like IITs are so important. You can't easily measure how much of the students here are absorbing knowledge and then developing it in their own. You may not even be aware of what you are doing, but they have to play a very important role. Because technology is power, countries want to dominate technology. And they do it by two methods. IPR and technology control regimes. So India, if it is to become powerful, must develop copyright patents. And if you want others not to dominate technology, not to control you through technology control regimes, you must have the capability. You may not do it, develop that, but you must have the capability to develop technology as you like. And let me repeat again, your institution, third word, fourth word is technology. Indian Institute of Technology. So you are an organization, students here, faculty here, and of course the director here, should make sure that we are not affected by technology control regimes and also develop intellectual property rights. If you want India to be a global technology leader, both in the development and security sectors, India should be in the forefront of creating IPRs and make itself immune to technology control regimes, which we have done both in the nuclear and missile area. So this has already been quoted. I always have said national development and national security are two sides of the same coin. Security without development is meaningless. And old Russia, Soviet Union, they found that on nuclear weapons and military style, they could match America. But they ignored development. That's why they had to go for perestroika and all that. Gorbachev, perestroika and all that. And development without security is vulnerable. Good example is Japan. Security, development with very highly developed, but you are afraid of a small neighbor who has military strength. And let me conclude by saying, which I have said in 2009, design of nuclear weapons with exactly predictable requires expertise in many areas of physics. Explosive ballistic, shockwave physics, neutron kinetics, physics related to radiation coupling of the two stages in the thermonuclear device. And then, of course, precise estimate. We can do all this now. No problem about doing it. And with that, I close and I thank you very much for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. But before moving to here, may I humbly request to the participants if they have any queries, one or two, to kindly attend to them.
And please ask easy questions. No, you can ask any kind.
Any of the from this gallery? Yes.
Can you come near?
So in the Venn diagram that you showed, the North Korea was missing. Why was that reason?
Sharing of nuclear weapons knowledge. Only for that.
Yeah, but
And what is your question?
no, the question is the way some of the countries got that information from some other.
It's politically known. In the Manhattan Project, there were American scientists, of course, and there were British scientists. Knowledge about them went to France. And it's known France gave it to China, and China gave it to Pakistan. India, nobody.
My question was,
knowledge, nor did we spy. Yes, please.
North Korea.
Huh? Yeah, I'm not a politician. You are beginning to go deep now. I mean, I have no knowledge. How much knowledge in this they got from other countries. So I don't want to comment on that.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, between the first and the second test, 74 and 98, about 24 years. And now it's almost 26 years since the second test. And the generation which worked and then did it successfully must be close to retirement or retired. So how does DAE or how do we, continue this lineage of, confidence to do practically when the time is?
This is true of any technology.
Yeah.
Any technology, if the senior people retire, it is their responsibility to pass on the knowledge. And of course, the younger generation can develop it further. What is true of conventional technology is also true of nuclear weapon technology. No more comments on that.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
So due to the time constraints, we may. Thank you. Yes, sir. Passpose. I again request Professor Amit Roy sir to kindly introduce our next speaker and to the next speaker and invite him for the talk, sir. Please give a big hand.
So this was we are enthralled by the exposition of personal reminiscences as well as the science behind it, and also we saw how the development went about and was carried out by one of the persons who was a key player in the 1974 peaceful nuclear explosion. So now we have another distinguished speaker, and Dr. Anil Kakodkar. And again, it's my pleasant duty to introduce him to you again. But still, the as we all know, Dr. Kakodkar doesn't require a real introduction from a person like me, but it's my privilege to do that on behalf of NASI. Dr. Kakodkar joined BRC in 1964 after he completed his degree in mechanical engineering from VJTI, Mumbai. And he was working in the reactor engineering division. And he has also, from him, we'll learn about his role in the 1974 explosion and the 1998 explosion. I will not go into that for him to talk about in detail about that. But he was the director of BRC from 1996 to 2001, and he was the chairman of Atomic Energy Commission from 2000 to 2009. And he was one of the major contribution to the indigenous development of the large number of critical systems of the the pressurized heavy water reactors that we have now got. It's a completely indigenous reactor, which is providing now, it's just been commissioned, the first two of them, I think 700 megawatts each. And that's going to be for one of the basic reactors with which we will have the energy expansion program in the nuclear area. And he has been also working towards pushing for he has done a lot of work on the technology of thorium, which Dr. Chidambaram mentioned. This is the third stage using plutonium as a driver. And this test program is on the way, and we have crossed the second stage. The breeder reactor is going to be commissioned very soon at Kalpakkam, and which will pave the way to the third stage, which was actually envisaged by Dr. Homi Bhabha long back. And Dr. Kakodkar is one of the key players who enhance this program to a large extent. Not only that, he started many other activities in the Department of Energy. He was instrumental to join hands with the DST to have the DA-DST collaboration for the mega science projects, which is being funded now in not only the areas of nuclear physics, it's in astrophysics and in high energy particle physics, and that the funding, the process was set up by the initiative of Dr. Kakodkar from the Department of Atomic Energy when he was the chairman. He also he created the UGC DAE consortium at Indore for the university students to be able to utilize the DAE facilities, and that provided a bridge between the University Grants Commission and the DAE. So he had innovated in this and helped the students all over the country in the universities who don't have the major facilities to be able to utilize the DAE facilities that are there. He is also, again, his accolades which he has received are many. I will not enumerate them, except that he has been given the second, the Padma Vibhushan was awarded to him in 2009. Dr. Chidambaram also is the recipient of the Padma Vibhushan award. So this shows, I think, to be able there was a question to Dr. Chidambaram about how the leadership and the technology passes down the line, and this is a great example that the knowledge that was there at Dr. Chidambaram's time, and Dr. Kakodkar carried it out later on, and I'm sure there are many others in the program who are now have that technology capability. So this will continue. And DAE system has been made very robustly. It's made because I came originally from the DAE system. I was in TIFR for a very long time. I know that the self-reliance is a mantra which was given to us right to day one. That what Dr. said, that what you do, you get whatever technology you can get available to you, utilize. And whatever you cannot do, you do it. Whatever you cannot get, you do. So that's something which is there. And Dr. Kakodkar is one of the examples of that. He was being trained in the training school of BRC, and he carried out very fruitfully the in the 74, he participated. In 98, he played a key role. And later on, in 2008, when the Indo-US nuclear deal took place, he was one of the key persons who safeguarded India's defense capabilities to be away from that. He safeguarded that component in the US nuclear deal. He has written a book with Suresh Gangotra, Fire and Fury. I will request all of you to read that book. It's a very inspiring book on the way he managed things. So with that, and of course, I should not forget to mention that he was the president of our academy, NASI, in 2017 and 18, and the past president served as in the 19 to 20 as in the council. So I welcome Dr. Kakodkar to give his keynote address.
Well, first of all, let me express my gratitude to NASI. It's always a wonderful thing to be back here and be a part of NASI activities. This particular opportunity, of course, is very special because it deals with a turning point in I would say history of our country, and in many ways turning point also in terms of the science and technological activities of our country. And more so, it's an event where I had some role to play personally. Let me begin with an anecdote. I was a late entrant to this team that did the 74 PNE experiment. I used to work in reactor engineering area. And one day, my boss, my director, Mr. McConey, he called me and said, you go and meet Dr. Ramanna. Dr. Ramanna was our director BRC. So I went up to his office, Dr. Ramanna's office, said, I was given such and such message by my director. So here I am. Tell me when you give appointment, then I'll come. Now, obviously, Dr. Ramanna's office did not know about this. So they said, okay, whenever Dr. Ramanna is free, we'll let you know. So I came back. 2 days passed, 3 days passed. And one day, Mr. McConey, very angry, he called me again and he says, why have you not gone and met Dr. Ramanna? I said, no, I'd sought an appointment. This appointment is yet to come. So whenever it comes, I'll go. He said, no, don't wait for all that. You go and meet him right now. So I went. Dr. Ramanna also was very angry. He says, why did you take so long time? I said, look, you ask your office. So he said, if my office tells you not to come, will you not come? I said, of course I will not come. So anyway, that's how it started. I didn't know that I have been called by him for this purpose, nor did he tell me at that time. And he talked about uh, some random things. I couldn't figure out why I'm here. And then he suddenly asked, "Do you talk in your sleep?" So I told him, "How do I know?" So said, "Did your wife not tell you anything?" I said, "Not so far." So then he says, "Why don't you go and ask?" So I said, "Okay, I'll ask and tell." And it went on. And then he says, "No, there is some work going on in NPD workshop. So you go and meet Mr. Soni." He was the in charge of that workshop. I still didn't know what is this all about. So I went to NPD workshop, and that is the time I came to know what is this all about. And then, of course, I got deeply engrossed. Dr. Chidambaram uh, later told me the higher aspects of this whole thing. So that is the time I came to know of this term, need to know basis. So you didn't know how many people in BARC are a part of. There are instances where there are many people whom I knew, very good friends. They didn't know that I'm involved in this, and I didn't know that he is involved. One such friend was Dr. Sheshadri, who was looking after controls. And we came to know much later that we are both part of the same team. So the fact is, anything like that does involve number of people, but maintaining confidentiality means you must keep that number to a minimum and work with strict discipline. And so that need to know basis principle was very, very important. Coming back to the event itself, as I said, 74 was clearly a turning point. Reflecting back on that event, it seems to me that Dr. Bhabha, of course, he was instrumental in shaping atomic energy program. He set up TIFR, he set up BARC. And I have always wondered, I actually thought quite deeply about this. Same person, same city of Bombay, two institutions have been set up under the same department, but in terms of their organization, in terms of their structuring, the two institutions are far apart, quite differently done. And obviously, it has not happened by accident. It has happened by design. And so that tells us why we call Dr. Bhabha a great institution builder. Many of us have built institutions. But design of institutions is something, I think there are many things that are worth learning from what Dr. Bhabha did. To my mind, he looked at research, technology, and engineering as one continuum. And he did that at a time when the social structure in the country, including in science institutions, was far away from this logic. And he did realize, in fact, atomic energy, space, defense, these are colloquially called the mission mode institutions. Now there are many more missions in the country, but at that time, So, and there has been debate in that past. Mission mode institutions, they take away disproportionate resources, depriving the other aspects of. In my young days, I heard a lot of such comments, and I'm sure even in academies, this discussion must have taken place. I'm not too sure about whether NASI had, but this was a common discourse in those days. It was very difficult for a young person at that time, like me, to decide what is right and what is wrong. But today, after having gone through all these experiences, I think one can, or I can confidently say that at the end of the day, Bhabha was right. And many of these discourses have, in fact, vanished today. We don't talk like that. We recognize how important it is to look at them as one continuum. And I think in terms of academies, NASI is perhaps best placed to propagate that science and society, a principle enunciated by Dr. Meghnad right in the beginning. Now, that's the core principle with which things have been happening in these mission mode organizations, more particularly atomic energy. So Baba used to articulate this principle, find a scientist or find a man and build a lab around him. Don't bother about that. I have so many programs, then so many verticals, so I'll have to deploy so many vacancies, and then describe a job description and then find a person to fit that job description. He never did like that. So that was the kind of broad-minded approach with which he launched the program. But, to do this in a mission mode focus is very difficult, but he had that mission mode focus. And I think whatever has happened in atomic energy, a much larger credit goes to that philosophy. Dr. Baba also played this, we just heard in Dr. Chidambaram's lecture and these slides. He has been giving many statements, for that matter, after the Chinese explosion. He announced that given a decision, India can produce a nuclear bomb in 18 months. That was obviously to shape public opinion. People should be aware of what are our capabilities. And obviously, much more such discussion must have taken place with the policymakers for them to know what is our capability, what is it that we can do, and also the ramifications of taking actions one way or the other. Because unless the policymakers are well informed, it's difficult for such very important national decisions to be taken. And I think that's another aspect of a connection between people who can see future, and doing science on the front line is also a part of that ability to see the future, and the policymakers who have to take decisions in the larger context. And of course, I would dare say that in Bhaba's time, that synergy was about at its best. But that's an important aspect of this development. Yet another attribute which I would like to highlight at this stage is the discourse between the countries. You heard shades of that in Dr. Chidambaram's lecture. I remember I was attending, this must be in late 60s, early 70s. I was attending a conference on reactors, of course, in Japan. And of course, we were in training school and also later heavily indoctrinated, if I can use that word, on three-stage nuclear program. And that was the topic of my lecture. So I talked about thermal reactors, PHWRs. I talked about fast breeder reactors. I talked about thorium. And after my presentation, the two senior people, very senior people for that matter, one from Westinghouse, one from GE, they caught me and said, let's go for a cup of tea. And they tried to brainwash me literally to say that, look, designing of a nuclear reactor cannot be done by one country. A country, poor country like India, it's impossible. You are wasting your time. And of course, I got into an engagement, which was kind of almost a tutu meme. I would tell them something, they would tell me something. But finally, at least argument for argument, I saw that I am able to give logical responses. So I thought I'll confront them. They tell me what I'm telling you is right or wrong. Am I not talking logical? And the answer was, yeah, you may be logical, but the world doesn't move on logic. And that was a big learning point for me. And we hear a lot of things, lot of arguments. At least I, for one, never take those logics on face value. I know in the international domain, the arguments are based on national interest, respective national interest. And later, at senior level, when I said this becomes actually you make an argument that, well, you may be talking like so, that may be your interest, but our interest is this. And this is perfectly fine. So well, that also is a part of logic. The important point is when we do this technology, particularly new technology, game-changing technologies or technology which impacts the world, who is right, who is wrong, and all is besides the point. And what Dr. Kalam used to say, strength respects strength. That actually, and I have felt this firsthand. I have felt the impact of technology-related sanctions, both after 1974 and after 1978, and how critical and how at times abusive people could be. And I also felt during negotiating civil nuclear cooperation that once the other side becomes aware of your strength, whatever you say, in fact, even if you talk illogical thing, they respect you. So, and I think what we have gone through in atomic energy related development, it has, and that's the reason why it has had impact on the country as a whole. Many times people say, for example, civil nuclear cooperation, the people in diplomacy, people in inter-country relations, they had huge expectations. And in atomic energy, we felt this will happen, that will happen. There are some people who will say, well, what has happened? Nothing has happened. Where are this new capacity? Where are the so-called civil nuclear cooperation, several dimensional? Where is that? And there are other people who feel that that was a turning point for the country as a whole. The kind of embargoes that were there on the country, not in nuclear area, I'm talking about other than nuclear. Today they are not there. A simple example is the kind of chips or the computers capability that you have in the market. It was not there in Indian market earlier than that. So this, the national strength, ability of the countries to exert, and ability of the countries to derive benefit from this international domain is something that we need to remain conscious about. So the main point that I wish to make is this: a holistic approach to, as I said earlier, research, technology, and engineering together is extremely important. And you want to do big things, you must learn. Culturally, we must restructure our organizations to make sure that the silos which we often see in these domains, we many times see the silos across disciplines itself, but the silos across these domains are actually even more strong, and those need to be dismantled. Let me now come to the second aspect of post 74 and also post 98. Of course, the sanctions came in, embargoes came in. That made the job of, even within our department, the job of, for example, carrying the nuclear power program forward, it made much more difficult. Americans, they stopped supplying fuel to Tarapur reactors at that time. So the question was how the reactor would run. Canadians withdrew from Rajasthan, which was being built under collaboration. It was not a vendor-buyer kind of arrangement. It was a collaborative program to build PHWRs at Rajasthan. They left halfway. And we had started work with industry to kind of make this, but it had not matured enough. So the task was to kind of carry on with the ongoing activities, complete them, and build a larger program thereafter with all these restrictions imposed. So this was one problem. There was another problem, and that was what I'll call the manufactured controversies. So you start hearing these reports that, well, the yield of this device was not up to the mark. It happened in 74. It also happened in 98. And then, of course, every question that was raised, it was adequately responded to. In fact, in terms of putting out technical information about a nuclear weapons test, I don't think any country has given out as much information as India has done. But I found the controversies won't stop. And it's only later I figured out that, trying to imagine that everything that is being said is logical and try to counter that with logic has no meaning. It is futile. So I actually requested my colleague, Dr. R.K. Singh, to develop a 3D code to simulate Earth movement during a nuclear explosive experiment or a nuclear test. And till that time, a full 3D code to do this high strain rate, fast movement, modeling the entire growth of the chimney, coupling of energy with the rest of the Earth mass. It was there, but the full 3D code wasn't there. It was not there anywhere in the world. So I requested him that let's do that and publish this in an international journal and get it validated. So he did that. It was validated against a lot of data that was released following the accidental venting of a Bainsbury event. It was a nuclear test in United States. And so there was an inquiry, a lot of data was realized, and that was an opportunity for us to create validation, and that was published in Nuclear Science and Technology at that time. And using that code, then we said, okay, if somebody says that I have measured the effect of seismic waves coming from Pokhran 1 or Pokhran 2 in faraway place, Upasla or wherever. And then based on that, I predict that this was the yield which was low or not adequate or whatever. Actually, we wrote a paper to essentially call that a bluff. And after that, I have not seen this appearing again. So I thought on this day, I want to narrate this. Again, it's a question of responding strength with strength. You just enter into argument that tu meme does not take us very far. The third point that I wish to bring out on this occasion is this question about self-reliance. As was mentioned, self-reliance was Professor Amit Roy mentioned, he felt the self-reliance principle at work even in your days in TIFR. And that was a principle Dr. Bhabha used to very strongly sort of insist that we all follow. Now, after these tests, and then following, they put restrictions on the nuclear technology as a whole. And then we overcame all that also because the nuclear reactor program has moved from strength to strength. At that time, it was only Tarapur, Rajasthan. Now we have dozens of reactors which are performing to the world-class performance. In the sense, for example, Unit 1 of Kaiga, it made at one stage a world record of longest uninterrupted continuous run of as long as 962 days. So that speaks about the technology. And it has become a commonplace. Our reactors are, if you ask how many times our reactors have run for more than 1 year without any stop, uninterrupted operation longer than 1 year. And you can confidently say that number is in not tens, not 20s. I think it's of the order of 40 and longer. It keeps on increasing every 6 months, every 1 year. So, and that is now recognized by the world, that Indian technology is world class. It is also recognized by the world that we make these reactors, self-reliance, all value addition is in the country. And it is recognized by the world that we make all these at half the cost. You hear in the media a lot of things about importing SMRs, importing these reactors. One of the reasons why the provision for setting up light water reactors with American help or French help, which was part of the civil nuclear cooperation deal, is not going forward. They may tell you about civil nuclear liability and issues. The real issue is they are not able to match the cost. And that's a big, strong point. So all that has happened. But how it has happened, and I would like to share another anecdote just to figure out how it has happened. So Dr. Siegfried Hecker. He was the director of Los Alamos, the famous weapons lab of United States. And he is a plutonium metallurgist. So he actually runs a think tank at Stanford University. And under the garb of some meeting, scientific meeting, he came to India and he approached me at that time and he says, I want to visit BARC. I said, how do I allow you to go to BARC? You have to allow me to go to Los Alamos, then only I'll allow you to come to BARC. He said, no, you don't have to show me all this, but I still want to visit. So I said, what is your interest? So he said, no, I'm a plutonium metallurgist, so I would like to discuss. So of course, I put him in touch with Sri Kumar Banerjee at that time. It was plutonium. I said, metallurgist. I said, metallurgy, but you meet outside BARC. I'll not allow you to. Once I allowed him inside, but otherwise I'll not allow you to. But that was, I think, a very helpful, when you say cooperate from a position of strength. Later on, he came multiple occasions. And somebody actually warned him that, look, he may be a big scientist, but right now his intentions are not all that benign. Be careful. I said, doesn't matter, let us see. But same Dr. Siegfried Hecker is on record in a testimony in a US Congressional Committee. And you can search internet. In the United States, all these documents are open. And in his testimony to the Congressional Committee, he says that we put embargo on India. That embargo had no effect on India's weapons program. So that was the main intention. It didn't happen. We put embargo on India, and India's power program got delayed. And this is a fact. We had done everything ourselves, but it took long years. Now, India has developed so far that maybe there are elements, this is all on record, there are elements in Indian power program from which United States can learn. And he gave example of fast reactor. So the point is, it builds up over a period of time. It builds up, and now I can't make a direct connection between that and how civil nuclear cooperation emerged. But all these things come together. Civil nuclear also has a lot of geopolitics at work and China factor. So these are all very complex things. You can't make a connection that, well, this happened, so this happened. That's never true. No complex system, this is true. But everything matters. So in terms of these controversies and in terms of these embargoes, I think it, of course, makes our self-reliance strong, but it is also possible to leverage that and utilize that for national benefit. Now I'm going to the last point, and that is we have come this far. We have, in spite of the NPT and the pressure related to the NPT, whether they agree or not, India is a nuclear weapon state. The civil nuclear cooperation defines India as a responsible country with advanced nuclear technology. These are the words embedded in that. So there is that kind of recognition. Now we have the global warming threatening us. And in many ways, the risk to humanity from global warming is far higher, in my view, than risk to humanity arising out of nuclear weapons. You may find it strange, but if you think about it, I'm sure you will come to same conclusion. Now, India is 1/6 of humanity, the largest, most populated country in the world. We have a large development deficit yet to be covered. So while net zero is an important target for the entire humanity to meet, India included, because if the world doesn't exist, we don't exist. And so the challenge is, on one side, we have this development deficit. We now hear this Vikasit Bharat, the big slogan. Vikasit Bharat means that the quality of life of average Indian should be comparable with the quality of life in advanced countries. So I don't see any other definition of Viksit Bharat. There is a direct correlation between the energy that you use and the Human Development Index or quality of life, at least as far as this development is in progress. For developed country, it all reaches a saturation, but there is a minimum threshold where you must reach, otherwise you don't become Vikasit. Now, how much is that energy? That energy is 4 times the current energy use in the country. And if you want numbers, 28,000 terawatt hours per year. Long time back, in some other context, we had this debate. I know Rangan has a different view. But the fact is, you can argue on numbers, but you cannot dispute the fact that it's a much larger number. And there is no way you can reach that without a large role being played by nuclear. For me, it is as simple as that. And I now draw a direct connection between the level of nuclear deployment and the level of development, or to what extent we have reached that definition, Viksit Bharat. And if you don't do nuclear deployment adequate enough, that means we'll remain avikasit up to that point. This is actually a straight equation. Now, how much of nuclear energy we require? And you would find that to generate so much of nuclear energy, the uranium required, if you only continue with the today's nuclear technology knowledge, that uranium required will become a sizable part of the total global uranium supply. And so whatever energy security issue we talk about in the context of oil and petroleum products, because we are a large importer, and so any fluctuation in international market, it affects our economy in a big way. Same thing will happen in nuclear if we continue to grow nuclear program based on imported uranium, which luckily we are able to do, so our program is growing. Thanks to civil nuclear cooperation, that's happening. But we need to be conscious about bring back that self-reliance. Be aware that we don't have so much of uranium on Indian landmass. And so what Dr. Bhabha said was absolutely on spot. India's strength is thorium. We have the largest resources of thorium in the world. And so we must transform this program to be dependent on thorium rather than uranium. And we have only the target date for net zero is 2070. So we have only this much time, around 4 decades. And 4 decades in terms of this technology will go away just like that. So I think there is a need to hasten thorium deployment, all related technologies. And earlier it was a question of if there are technologies from abroad, and we talked about self-reliance. These thorium technologies are not available anywhere. So you have to got to anyway do it yourself. And that is the message that I would like to leave today. That you want to see India as a Vikasit Bharat. You want to celebrate 4.5 decades is what 2070, so roughly 5 decades. So today we are 50 years after Pokhran 1. So if somebody is going to sit down again 50 years from now and reflect back and say whether India has become Viksit Bharat or not, we'll have to see how much progress we have made on thorium. I won't be alive. Many of the old people may not be alive, but young people, you please watch out and see how far it has happened. And I would like to watch the discourse of that day from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Before moving to further proceedings, may I request our President, Honorable Professor Balram Bhargava, sir, and the Director of this institute, Professor Ranjan Banerjee, sir, to kindly felicitate our distinguished speakers. May I humbly request Chidambaram, sir, also to, sir, kindly come over the desk. ये लाइट थोड़ी सी बढ़ा देंगे क्या? पहले सॉल्व दो एक एक इस बार पहले सॉल्व एक सर पे दे भार्गव सर प्रोजेक्टर ये आ गई रिमोट है ना प्रोजेक्टर तो लगा सर Sir, before moving to the, I again request to the distinguished guests to retain here for just release of the book High Pressure Physics Electricity, authored by Dr. S.M. Sharma sir, and also the co-author by Dr. Chidambaram sir. May I request to the stranger personnel also, Mrs. Swati Maharshi and the Miss Priya Vyas from stranger to kindly come over the desk. I request Dr. S.M. Sharma sir, who is the author of this book. And Dr. Surinder M. Sharma sir has been working in the field of high pressure physics for almost 4 decades. And he has been working in various national and international institutions. During his tenure in BARC, he has developed several instruments, including experimental